What is up, everyone? The best day of the week just got better. Welcome back to another episode of What's the Word, your home for all things sports. I'm your host, Sam Casillas, and without further ado, let's get right into it, man. Let's talk some sports. Let's talk what's going on in the sports world, and let's kick it off with the NBA Finals. The Boston Celtics and the Dallas Mavericks. And listen, I know I said the Mavs were going to be my pick and for the series, and that was going to be Mavs in 6, but let me just say, man, I want to be the first to say that I was wrong. And, I just want to give the Boston Celtics their flowers, and they absolutely deserve this title. I think it's safe to say that it's going to be a gentleman's sweep. They're up 3-1 right now. They tried to handle business back in Dallas, but they weren't able to. And, it's safe to say that this is going to be a gentleman's sweep. History and the odds are not in Dallas's favor. Teams that are down 0-3 are 0-156 all time. And, the Celtics have been absolutely on fuego in the playoffs. This was their first loss in the playoffs since May 9th. So, they've been balling. And, yeah, it was a bad loss. It was the third largest margin of victory in playoff history. So, it was a shocking loss. The Celtics were expecting to handle business, but, they couldn't get the job done. They're still in a commanding 3-1 spot. And like I said, history and, the odds are not in Dallas' side. Don't get me wrong. I think Dallas is still going to go out there and fight, but I think, Game 5 is looking like the game in the Garden to just go and put it away. So, hats off to the Mavericks for being able to battle, but I just really want to give, I really want to give the Boston Celtics their flowers. And I think, they did an exceptional job. Another thing I want to point out is that, this is a team who just the whole season, the entire playoffs, they have been getting scrutinized. They have been getting, people are trying to bash the Celtics as much as they can. And they have just, done a tremendous job of handling all the noise. And they were the favorites all year to win a chip in the Eastern Conference. They've sat alone. They've been the big dogs, and they've been waxing everybody in the playoffs. Whoever's been put in front of them, regardless of how healthy they are, regardless of who they got. The Boston Celtics have just been playing tremendous basketball, and people all throughout the media, myself included, I've been guilty of it, but they've been trying to create so much division between, Tatum and between Brown in that locker room, between that team as a whole, just who's the better player. But, those guys, they have not let that get to them the slightest bit. They're going out there, they're hooping, they're doing theirs. They're going to get theirs, and you better believe that. So the fact that the media, people have been trying to create so much division in that locker room, and just hats off to Tatum, hats off to Brown, hats off to the Boston Celtics, because they've really handled all this noise well. And, people have never given them their flowers. Since the beginning of the season, like I said, they've been the clear favorites all year. They've sat alone in the Eastern Conference all year pretty much. So the fact that people were never willing to give them their flowers, I think, it's tough. And I get it. It's the Boston Celtics. Everybody hates the Boston Celtics, So it's really tough to give them their flowers. But I think now you really just can't deny it. It's greatness right there. And this was just their year. So just hats off to them. They handled that noise, and, they're out there hooping. But, I'm gonna take a shift away from the Celtics. But let me just talk about the Dallas Mavericks. And, Kyrie Irving, you got to step up a little bit more. If Luka is going to chill out a little bit on the scoring, like how we kind of saw him in Game 4 a little bit, if he's going to exert a little bit more energy, because, let me tell you, Luka, this is a guy who can give you a 40 piece damn near every day. So, Luka, if he's going to exert a little bit more energy on the defensive end of the floor, I expect Kyrie Irving to pick up a little bit of that slack. Offensively, he's got to help out Luka Doncic, and he's got to play a little bit better. But whatever the Dallas Mavericks did in Game 4, it was working. It's like, man, where was this? Games 1 through 3? And, not to say that Dallas played terrible, they were able to come back from a 25-plus point deficit, almost. So I get, close but no cigar, but the Dallas Mavericks, they have not been playing terrible basketball, and we got to keep that in mind. But, Kyrie Irving, you got to step up. If Luka Doncic is going to play better defense like he did in Game 4, and it showed, he was exerting more energy, and it reflected on the score sheet. The Boston Celtics, they weren't getting these easy drives to the rim. They were altering their shots, and it's like, that's all it takes. It's like, hey, Luka, we're not asking you to play tremendous lockdown, clamp defense, slap the floor, do all that drive. No, man, we're asking you to just, hey, don't let the Boston Celtics do what they do and get easy cups, easy trips to the basket, and easy finishes around the rim. And, Dallas really stepped up with their back against the wall. And, hey, people have been wondering where that's been, but, when your back's against the wall, that tends to bring out another level of fight in you. So the Dallas Mavericks, they showed that. But, maybe too little too late. You're wondering if, this could have been done games 1, 2, and 3. If, it's a whole different story. Maybe it's Dallas holding up the Larry O'Brien. But, it's just the Celtics year, and they've played tremendous, but you still got to have that optimism. You still got to have, as a sports fan, I mean, you got to root for the underdog. Hopefully Luka can, string together, maybe one more win and, swing the momentum back to Dallas for game 6. And who knows? I mean, at that point, it's anyone's series. But like I said, history really isn't on their side. But I really like the way Dallas played in game 4. I mean, like I said, their backs were against the wall, and there were no expectations. They just went out there and they hooped and they got the job done. So they were playing, that was their best game of the playoffs, of the finals. They were just playing tremendous complimentary basketball. They were getting it done on all stages of the game, offense, defense. And, they showed us, that they have the potential, that they have the capability to hang with these guys. But, I mean, they're going back to the Garden for game 5, and that's not where you want to be if you're the Dallas Mavericks. You don't want to be back at TD Garden with your back against the wall, facing elimination, because the Celtics, they are phenomenal in that building. That's not an easy place to win basketball games at, and it's been proven throughout history. I mean, some of the greats have gone in there, some of the greats have not walked out with a win. So in the biggest stage, I think, when it's all said and done, I think it's wraps for the Mavericks. I hate to say it, but, hats off to the Celtics, and, I think banner number 18 is right there for the taking for the C's. I think now, staying on that same train of the Dallas Mavericks, I think it's time for, Luka Doncic. He's going to get that Tatum treatment, because, let's backtrack a little bit, man. Let's not forget, after that NBA Finals, the Celtics and the Warriors, where the Celtics came up short, I mean, Jason Tatum, man, oh man, that guy was getting the most hate I have ever seen, and simply because he couldn't get the job done. This is a guy who's, done it all in the regular season. He's made so many playoff appearances, but just unable to get the job done. And when he finally got the opportunity to play on the big stage, he kind of, the lights were too bright, and he didn't really deliver. So I think now that he's going to have this ring under his belt, I think you can't discredit him anymore. This is what he needed. This is what Tatum needed to finally get his respect. So I think now it's kind of going to switch from Tatum being that guy to Luka Doncic being that guy, because that's kind of, they're in the similar boat. Luka, leading scorer in the NBA this season, having one of the best seasons, didn't win MVP, but I mean, this was a guy who did it all throughout the playoffs, but once we got to the big stage, he couldn't get it done. And, people have really been on Luka. And, don't get me wrong, Luka Doncic, he's an exceptional ball player, but I think, he deserves a little bit of the noise he's getting. I mean, his defensive effort was really not the best, and, people were getting on him for that all year. And I think, game 4, he finally shut some people up. He played such tremendous defense. But I mean, this guy, he's a young cat. He's 25. He's already one of the best scorers in the league, and he's still got a ways away to go. And I mean, let's just dive into the numbers a little bit. He had the 3 highest blow by percentages in the playoffs this year, in the past 10 years in a series. So he is leading that. The 3, he leads it. Top 3, 1, 2, 3. It's Luka Doncic, and they were all in this year's playoffs. So this guy, he was struggling. And, in the first round, the Clippers drove past him 65% of the time, and then OKC 67% of the time, OKC 59% of the time, and then the Boston Celtics 67% of the time. So, I mean, this is a guy who has had his struggles, and, really this is the only time it's starting to catch up to Luka Doncic, and that's why we're starting to see all that noise now, was because, against the Clippers, against the Thunder, you were kind of able to hide Luka Doncic somewhere on that court and, maybe guard someone who doesn't score as such a high clip as some of these Celtics players. But, when you look at a team like the Boston Celtics, I mean, there's nowhere to hide Luka Doncic. They have guys who can score at an exceptionally high clip, 1 through 5 in their lineup, even off the bench. So with Luka Doncic, you're in a tough spot because you can't hide him anywhere. I mean, just about anybody you put on Luka was giving him buckets in game 1 through 3, and until he turned that around in game 4, it was a different story. But I mean, they were giving Luka the work, man. He was looking gas, and I'm not trying to say Luka's a crappy defender, but I mean, this guy, he's banged up, he's beaten up, he's exhausted. But man, on the biggest stage, how bad do you want it? And I think if he would have played every game like game 4, it's a different story. It's a completely different story. But you can't harp on the past. You can only grow from it, and hopefully Luka Doncic does just that. But I think let's be real. Let's keep it a buck. Sometimes, hating does work. So if Luka gets the hate, if he gets the Tatum treatment, I mean, who knows? Maybe that can only turn him into that much more of a cold-blooded player. But the Celtics, they just completely exposed Luka Doncic's defense, and like I said, there was nowhere to hide him. So that was a big issue for Jason Kidd and the Dallas Mavericks. But in games 1 through 3, they were just really having their way with Luka Doncic anytime he was the primary defender. And let me just say, regardless, shifting back over to the Celtics, regardless who wins MVP, I mean, kind of on that same boat, I think this is now the time where you got to give Jason Tatum his respect. I mean, this is a guy who has gone through just about everything he's gone through. He's gotten so much hate. He's been an all-star. He's been an all-conference. He's been an all-pro, whatever. But, this guy, he hasn't been able to just get over the hump. And, like I mentioned, he was absolutely bashed after that performance in the finals against Golden State. And he's a hell of a ball player, man. Jason Tatum, like, all those people hating on him, I guarantee you, you'll take him on your team any day. He's one of those guys who you hate it. He's not on your team, but if he were to be on your team, you'd love him in a heartbeat. So he was absolutely bashed. Like I mentioned, he was a regular season hero. He did it all. He was the perfect guy. Rounds 1 and 2 of the playoffs, he was exceptional. You get to the finals, and then, he kind of disappeared when the lights were the brightest. So, he really shut everybody up this year, and he's finally able to get over that hump. I feel like, that's just what he's an exceptional player. We know so many players in the NBA who are all-time greats who don't have a ring, but, I mean, this ring really just is going to solidify Jason Tatum. And, the crazy thing is that as much as this pains me to say, is that the Boston Celtics, I mean, they might not even be done. This can just be the start of something that's really big to come. I mean, their first championship, they're looking to bring back damn near the same roster next year. So, saying that they can run it back, it's not a ridiculous statement. We haven't had a repeat, I don't know the exact time frame, but we haven't had a repeat champion in the NBA in quite some time. So the fact that the Celtics can legitimately do this, I mean, it's kind of scary. So they're bringing back the same team. They have, talent 1 through 5. They can score at a high clip, and, they can defend extremely well, but they're going to be in the finals for some years to come, I feel. I think, if you're that Eastern Conference, it's kind of like who's going to take down the Celtics. You thought that Milwaukee trade with, Dame Lillard and Jrue Holiday was going to do something, and, you're kind of waiting for Philadelphia to be in the mix. I think Philly's got to add one more guy to their team and help out Joel Embiid. And mind you, Joel Embiid's got to be available too. It's been tough to see him go through injuries, but I mean, right now in that Eastern Conference, it's a new era in the Eastern Conference. Without LeBron James in there, but the Celtics are the team to beat in the East, and I see them returning to the NBA Finals, and I think they have some talent for years to come. But kind of hopping back on that MVP talk train, Finals MVP, and y'all can let me know what you think, but I think it's got to go to Mr. Jaylen Brown. I got to cast my vote for JB. I mean, this guy has had 3 terrific games in these NBA Finals. Mind you, Game 4 wasn't the best game for anybody on the Celtics lineup, so we can kind of go ahead and scratch that a little bit. But, I mean, this guy is leading the scoring for Boston with 24.3 points a game. He's been able to knock down some big shots for the Celtics. It seems like all postseason it's been him, but more so in these playoffs and in these finals. We saw Dallas Mavericks. They were kind of chipping away at that 25-point deficit, but, Jaylen Brown, he's like, hey, hold my beer. We're not losing this game. And, he had the ball in his hands, and he would not pass that rock. And, we've seen it, in that Game 3, Jaylen Brown, he wanted the last shot. He wanted the ball. And, I mean, that's just what you want to see. This guy is playing with some supreme confidence. He's hitting some clutch shots, and it seems like he's been able to just take the air out of that arena every time he touches the ball. So he's been playing some great ball. And like I'm saying, I mean, the Celtics, this is such a tough talk because they're so good 1 through 5, like I mentioned. But I think this is a guy who finally needs to just get his flowers and just get what's coming to him. I think if he can have a good Game 5 performance at the Garden, it's no doubt that MVP trophy's his. So I'm hoping, Jaylen Brown can get the job done, but hey, the Celtics, it's looking like banner number 18 is going to be hung in those rafters in the Garden very soon. Game 5 back at the Garden on Monday. Let's see if the Celtics can close it out for banner number 18. But let's dive in from the NBA, let's take a look at the WNBA. One thing I really want to talk about is just really briefly, I'm going to touch on, my kind of whole take on the Caitlyn Clark, the whole Team USA, Caitlyn Clark not making the cut for Team USA. And, like I said, this is something I'm not really going to harp on a lot, but I really just wanted to give my whole opinion on the situation because this is something that's got a lot of people curious. I mean, if you open Instagram, you open the comments, people are livid that Caitlyn Clark is not on the Team USA basketball team. And, let me just say right off the bat, before I get into what I'm going to say, I completely agree with the decision to not have Caitlyn Clark on the Team USA team. And let me tell you why. As much of a hooper as Caitlyn Clark is, I'm not discrediting her at all. And as a matter of fact, people are struggling to look past that. Guys, she's just not ready yet. Despite, her success in the W so far, I mean, this is a girl who finished her college season at Iowa, and 2 weeks later she was at the WNBA draft, getting ready for practice. So she hasn't even had one real professional off season yet, and that's what I think people don't see. She was kind of just thrown into the fire, and she's doing well for herself, but don't get me wrong, but she's putting up numbers, but she is still very raw, and there's no denying that Caitlyn Clark is going to get her time, but man, you just got to be patient. And I think people need to realize that sure, maybe she will bring viewers, but at the end of the day, it's Team USA. They're chasing gold. They don't care about no viewers. They won 7 straight golds. They're chasing 8. They got bigger and better things to worry about. And I don't think having Caitlyn Clark is going to take away the fact that they want to win still. So Team USA, they're going to do whatever they can to put their best players on the floor. And this year, it just didn't happen to be Caitlyn Clark. And that's not to say that she'll never be playing for Team USA, but I'm just saying I think she just needs to get a little bit more developed, get a little bit more seasoned, and, no doubt her time will come for Team USA. But like I said, they're chasing their 7th straight gold, and, for people to say that it's just going to affect the team not having Caitlyn Clark on there, they're flat out wrong. And I think, Caitlyn Clark, it's going to do her some good, getting some more time, adjusted in the W. And, I mean, like I said, we'll see how she looks when she has a full professional offseason under her belt. So we're just going to have to wait and see. Team USA, they're going to do their thing. They got their squad locked and loaded for the Olympics, and they're chasing gold. So with or without Clark, but don't get me wrong, guys. Caitlyn Clark, her time will come. It's just not right now. And I think, people really need to see that. And until they do, it's going to be tough. But, I'm excited to see Caitlyn Clark just keep working on her game. Hopefully she can use this as some motivation. Hopefully she knows, that, hey, I'm not just going to, get here because I'm Caitlyn Clark. Yeah, I'm changing the game. Yeah, I'm bringing more attention to the W, but now, that doesn't just give me an entitlement to, make Team USA right off the bat. You still got to work for it. At the end of the day, you're a rook now. You're bottom of the barrel no matter what you brought to the table. In college, what you bring, don't get me wrong, all the hype. I'm not taking that away from her. I can't stress that enough, how much I'm not trying to take that away from her. But, I mean, at the end of the day, she is a rook, and she's got to put in her time. And until she does that, I think, Team USA will be just fine without her. But, I mean, once she makes Team USA, oh, God, it's wraps times 10. Just give us the gold. But until then, I mean, we just got to realize, guys, she is a rookie. She has not had a full professional offseason. She was thrown in the fire, and she's doing well for herself, but she's going to get better. And, I think they just got to give it some time, but her time will come. So that's that, but let's take a big shift from NBA, WNBA. Let's talk NFL, baby. Mr. Jay Jetta's Viking Nation. No need to worry. The gritty man is there to stay. Some good news for all my Vikings fans out there. Justin Jefferson, 26-year-old, 3-time Pro Bowler, inked a 4-year, $140 million contract extension. So a guaranteed $35 million a year. And hats off to him, man. Jay Jetta is such a great receiver. And, since coming into the league, this is a guy who has been producing. He came in the league, first-round pick in 2020, and he has already earned such a big reputation of just, being one of the most exciting playmakers and exciting just players to watch. I mean, he's put up historic numbers worthy of that big contract. I mean, he's shown time and time again that, you want to put the money on him, and, he'll do his, he'll get his, and he's one of the five players ever with 5,000 plus receiving yards in his first 4 seasons. Let me say that again. He is one of 5 players ever with 5,000 plus receiving yards in his first 4 seasons. And 5,899 career yards are nearly 400 more than any other player in NFL history along that same measure. So this guy is putting up the numbers. I mean, men lie, women lie, but the numbers never lie. And I mean, you look at him for Jay Jettas and it's like, hey, take the bread, man. Y'all, you earned it. And like, how could you not pay him? And I mean, this is a guy, his 98.3 receiving yards per game also stand as like the most in NFL history. So Jay Jettas is out there balling. And, he's improved that average on a yearly basis. Like I mentioned, he came in the league in 2020. It was 87, then it went to 95, then to 106, and then to 107. So, I mean, this guy is constantly getting better. And, I mean, there's still a lot up in the air with that whole quarterback situation in Minnesota, in the Twin Cities. Do they want to go with J.J. McCarthy, their first-round pick, or do they want to, go with Sam Darnold? So there's so much up in the air. But one thing I want you guys to know, that Jay Jettas is going to get his regardless. And, I'm excited to see how everything is going to look in Minnesota. They're still out there. They're trying to compete. Just it's going to look a little bit different for them without Kirk. But that's kind of going to open up my next discussion. Just how could this affect the league? How does this payment of Justin Jefferson really just affect the future of the wide receiver position? And I mean, the 3-time Pro Bowler, it not only just resets the market, but I mean, it makes Justin Jefferson the highest paid non-QB in the league, taking that spot from the edge rusher, like I mentioned, Nick Bosa on the San Francisco 49ers. And I mean, before Justin Jefferson, there were a lot of wide receivers who got the bag, Amon-Ra St. Brown, A.J. Brown, Jalen Waddle, just to name a few. But, we still have CeeDee Lamb, who is one of the best route runners in the league, awaiting a contract. So, I mean, like I mentioned, this could completely change the game for wideouts today. And, everything is going to start to look, different with payday for these wideouts, as their prices are just going up. Athletes are just getting better and better. So, I mean, it's only a matter of time. Honestly, it's only a matter of time until someone, becomes the next highest paid wide receiver. And, the cycle is just going to keep going. But, these owners, they got the bread to throw, and, they'll spend it when these guys keep producing for them. And, Jefferson is a guy who, I mean, if you're the Vikings, I don't understand how you could let that guy walk. So, the fact that they were able to re-sign him, I mean, that was huge. So we'll see how he performs in year one of this 4-year deal with either Sam Darnold or with J.J. McCarthy. Who knows? But I mean, like I said, Jay Jettas is going to get his. But that's actually going to bring me to my last point of today's video. Still in the NFL world, but is it title time in Green Bay? And let me just say how, that kind of isn't really crazy to say. The Packers have yet again struck gold in the QB room with Jordan Love. I mean, first year as a starter, coming off with finished second in the league with 32 touchdowns, just 11 interceptions to go along with 4,158 passing yards. And I mean, this guy was able, like I mentioned, in his first year as a starter, able to lead Green Bay to the divisional round. They came up short against the Niners, but I mean, it was a battle. And so the future over there in Cheesetown is bright. And let me just say, they were the youngest team in the NFL and the youngest team since 1970. Yeah, since 1970 to win a playoff game. So, I mean, they've surely got something cooking over there. Like I mentioned, they struck gold again with Jordan Love. But let's talk about that young receiving core. They got Romeo Doubs, they got Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Bo Melton. Let's not forget about Christian Watson, who's been battling some injuries. But, I mean, things are looking promising in Green Bay. And that's just so awesome, because I feel like having all those young guys, it's so good for Green Bay, because there really is no true wide receiver one, and that's what makes them so dangerous, is because you can't just game plan for one receiver. Everybody on Green Bay is going to get theirs, and Jordan Love, he'll distribute the football. He's not just going to throw to one guy. So that's what makes Green Bay so dynamic in their offense. And I mean, like I mentioned, they've shown they can beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and that's kind of what everyone in the NFL is trying to figure out. The Kansas City Chiefs came over to Lambeau, and the Packers were able to finish the job and get the win. So, they can beat Kansas City. They can hang with these big dog teams in the playoffs. But, I mean, hopefully they can produce, come next season. But, I mean, I'm excited to see just how Green Bay comes out. They, Love is a bit more seasoned. They made some additions on both sides of the ball. I mean, Josh Jacobs, the new running back for the Packers from the Raiders, they signed him in free agency. A tough loss for Aaron Jones, but this guy, he's a little bit younger. He's very, very similar to Aaron Jones in a way. I mean, as a Packer fan, it's tough to say goodbye to Aaron Jones, because he's been the reason for our success. He's a great leader in that locker room, but losing him hurts. And I'm just excited to see how the Packers bounce back with this new squad. Like I mentioned, Josh Jacobs, they got Xavier McKinney over there in that secondary. They got a new defensive coordinator, Jeff Hafley, and I mean, that was probably the biggest thing because, man, Joe Barry had those Packers looking clueless out there. He had Preston Smith dropping into coverage. He had Preston Smith guarding Devontae Adams. Let that sink in. He had a 300-pound D lineman guarding the best route runner in the league, and you guys can only imagine how that ended up for the Packers. They ended up losing that game, unfortunately, and, that was a wake-up call. So they got Joe Barry out of there, and Jeff Hafley is here, and he has gotten a lot of praise from those guys in the locker room on that defensive side of the ball. So expect the Packers to come out a lot more aggressive this year. But the only thing that Green Bay is lacking on, and I mean, they are lacking, is extending Jordan Love. And I mean, it's only hurting them right now. His price is just going to go up, up, up. And especially with the highway robbery that Trevor Lawrence just committed. And I mean, Trevor Lawrence became the highest paid QB in the league. But the Green Bay Packers, they have had chance and chance again to extend Jordan Love's deal since the start of May, really. And that delay has really just cost them millions of dollars. And, since that time, we've seen Jared Goff get that QB extension. We've seen, Trevor Lawrence get some new deals. And, Jared Goff, he's getting paid $53 million a year. And that's going above, projections, for what they were going to pay Jordan Love. So, like I mentioned, that price is going to go up. You sprinkle in Trevor Lawrence, and that price is going up, up, up for Jordan Love. And if you look at the numbers, I mean, like I mentioned earlier in the video, men lie, women lie, but the numbers never do. And if you look at the season comparing Trevor Lawrence, now the highest paid QB in the league, he's kind of coming off a disappointing season. I mean, he threw for 4,016 yards, 21 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, and, really Jacksonville did not perform up to expectations. And you compare that to Jordan Love's first year as a signal caller, starting first year as QB1, he threw for 4,159 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. So better than Lawrence across the board. And mind you, Trevor Lawrence has never thrown for more than 25 touchdown passes as a starter. And mind you, J Love did that in his first year. So, I mean, numbers don't lie. The numbers don't lie. And Jordan Love is making a strong case for himself that he can get paid. And I mean, looking at that starting price for Trevor Lawrence, $55 million, that's the starting price for Love now. So Love, if you look at the numbers, like I say, he's shown that he can hang with the best QBs in the league, the highest paid QBs in the league. And 2 weeks ago, if you're the Green Bay Packers, that price is a different story. But now, with Jared Goff getting that bag, with Trevor Lawrence getting that bag, it's only going up for Jordan Love. So I'm excited just to see how they handle that with Green Bay. But they found the one. They found the one with J Love. It's a Love era in Green Bay over there, and they struck gold in the QB room. So Green Bay, a little biasy, but I'm excited to see just how they come back, being one of the youngest teams to make the playoffs and to win a playoff game. I mean, I feel like the Packers don't even know their ceiling right now. And with all those new people coming in, it's only going to make them better, hopefully. And hopefully they can just pick up right where they left off. They got hot right towards the end of the season. Perfect timing. And hopefully that can carry them in. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of What's the Word. Thank you all so much for joining me. As always, make sure to drop a like, drop a comment, subscribe, and share this video to a friend. Tell them to share that to their friend. Let's make this What's the Word thing go viral, man, because we have the potential, and it wouldn't be possible without you guys. So I appreciate all you guys for your tremendous support. We're only going to keep getting better, but more episodes coming your way. That's going to do it for this week's episode of What's the Word. I'm your host, Sam Casillas, and we'll see you next time. Take care.